Hi, hello, how are you? I am Scout, and today I'm going to be going over the first five books in the Hannah Svensson murder mystery, Bake Shop Murders. This is a book series that I really, really love, and I don't see a lot of like online communities about it. I bet there's a community that I just like have not breached, but I have like really deeply loved this book series, and I wanted to talk to someone about it and like give a recap of the series because I think this is such a crazy series and it's so fun. It is a like cozy murder mystery series. If you don't know what those are, that just means that they tend to be lighthearted. They tend to be winter themed. They tend to have really nice, like fun community elements and have like a kooky cast of characters. And this is definitely one of those book series. Um, I am so excited to recap this. This is actually why I created my channel was because I wanted to make a like a video series going over the Joanne Fluke books. I only have the first book with me, which is The Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder. My preferred method of reading the Joanne Fluke books is to read them from the library because sometimes people write little notes in them. I know you're not supposed to do that, and I do not. I do not write little notes in library books because I believe in the sanctity of a library. But other people don't feel that way, and I kind of love that. I love reading people's notes. They're so silly when they write stuff in the books. But this series is really, really long. It's actually still ongoing. So I really wanted to cover the series. And I originally was thinking of doing a long form video, like a 8-hour video. And I realized that would be really, really annoying. And it would be just for me. So instead, I'm splitting them into 5-book increments. So this will be covering the first 5 books. And oh my goodness, I forgot how much of a doozy these first 5 books is. It has one of my favorite books in the series, the most problematic book in the series, and one of the worst books in the series in the first 5 books. So it's kind of a crazy first 5 books. And I have, for the first 5 books, about 24 pages of notes. So I was trying to think of how to organize this, and I think it's best if I start by introducing the main core characters that will appear in each of the books and then go book by book. So the beginning portion is going to be me going over all of the main characters. And there's about 8, so brace yourself. Okay, so the first main character is Hannah Svensson. So some background on Hannah. She is from a 3-daughter family, and she was definitely like the dad's daughter. You know, like she hung out with her dad the most. She loved baking when she was in high school, and she went off to college in to study English. She was studying, doing a really great job. She had an affair with her teacher. She didn't know he was married, and when she found out he was married, she like broke it off and was very dramatic about it. And then her dad died while she was in college, and basically her mom, they say like spun out. We don't get a lot of detail on that. But like someone had to go home and take care of the mom. And Hannah decides that it's like her job to go home and not her 2 younger sisters. So she ends up leaving college and not finishing. I think she's a semester away from graduating and coming back to Lake Eden, Minnesota, which is where they're from. She ends up owning a little cookie place where she employs one of the other main characters, Lisa, which I will talk more about Lisa in a second. And she really, really enjoys her cooking job. And I think she doesn't regret any of the choices she's made to get there. She's now in her 30s when we meet her in the book series. And her biggest problems in life are her mother really, really wants her to date and get married. And she's very stressed about like her figure. Hannah is described as being like curvy, but like also like skinny. You know, when they like the author's like, she's curvy, but also she's skinny. So that to me deems that like she's like maybe a large. Like she seems like she's supposed to be like a plus size girl, but she's clearly not in some parts. I really like Hannah, and honestly, one of the most annoying parts of the book series is when she gets weird about her weight. There are so many great moments in the series, though, when Joanne Fluke has like Hannah be like, I'm curvy and I'm cute. Like, I love my body. But there are some real clunkers where she's not feeling that way about herself. But that tends to dwindle out in the series. But that's kind of the main character, Hannah. Now, the second most important character in the series, Moshi. Moshi is her cat. I did listen to an audiobook to make sure I was saying all the characters' names right, and I am not saying the cat's name right. It's Moisha, according to the audiobook, and I refuse to accept that. It's Moshi. Moshi's way cuter. And basically, Moshi is the ancient fat cat that she owns. It is just like a cute little fur ball in the series. I really love the cat. He is like barely a character, and he is just chubby and cute and loves to eat. And he like hurls himself at anyone who opens the door except for her mom, who he like rips up her pantyhose, and he's like real hater. I love the cat. The cat is like a person basically in the storyline because he's like so smart. He can like do all these tricks and stuff. But that's Moshi, her cat, which love Moshi. Every time Moshi's mentioned, I'm like, yes, Moshi. The next kind of main character is her mom. Her mom's name is Dolores, which is so delightfully evil. She definitely at the beginning of the series is like an Emily Gilmore type. She doesn't know how to cook. She can like cook one meal, and she is just like hoity-toity. She's super rich. They like mention that. She's like really rich, and she wears like vintage Chanel suits and stuff. And she loves antiques and like goes antiquing all the time. She is desperate for her daughter to get married and keeps like setting her up on dates. And so we get to see that as well. And she is only called Mother by Hannah, which I think is hilarious. The mothering is very funny. And I really like Dolores, and I'm trying not to spoil anything that happens with her. I think she's an incredibly funny character because they set her up so hoity-toity and annoying, and then she ends up being very, very funny. Like, I just really loved her. The next kind of main character is Lisa Herman. So Lisa Herman is Hannah's business partner. They start working together because Hannah realizes she needs some help, so she hires Lisa part-time. Lisa, I think when she gets hired initially, is like 18. And she is like in school, and she's really, really smart, and she gets a full ride to Minnesota State, I believe. And she ends up turning it down because her dad, Jack, has Alzheimer's. I think it's Alzheimer's. They switch between like dementia and Alzheimer's. I'm pretty sure it's Alzheimer's. And so she ends up staying home and not going to college to take care of her dad. And that's something that Hannah thinks is really sad, even though she did the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Hannah's sometimes a hypocrite. We'll get into it. But Lisa is super nice. She's super cutesy. She's very private. She doesn't like to talk about her like personal business or whatever. I love her. She is, again, a very funny, cute character. She is really, really smart and an excellent like baker, and like comes up with new creations all the time. She's really good at decorating and like icing cakes and icing like cookies and stuff. Like she can do all the decorations. And so I believe it's in the first book. She eventually becomes an actual partner to Hannah in the business. Hannah is like, I want you to be part of my business. And I really like their relationship. And so when the book starts, Lisa is about 2021, I believe. We don't get a lot of concrete ages in the book. So a lot of it is like hypothesis based on like them being like 3 years ago, Lisa started. So that's kind of Lisa. The next character is Andrea, which is one of Hannah's sisters. Andrea's the sister that's in it the most, especially at the beginning. The other sister, Michelle, is not in the book at the beginning because she's away at college. But Andrea is interesting. She is an interesting character because she has really funny moments, and then she has incredibly annoying moments. Andrea is a real estate agent who really, really cares about image, and she's super beautiful. Hannah talks about how pretty she is all the time. She has zero ability to cook. She has a daughter who is annoying. Yep, That's all you're going to hear about that daughter. I hate the daughter character, like with a burning passion, and she shows up a lot in the book series. I hate precocious kid characters, and definition of precocious kid. Her name's Tracy, and you'll never hear about her again because I dislike her. Andrea is like also hoity-toity like the mom, and it seems like her and Hannah have some issues. Just like right off the bat, you're like, oh, they like kind of don't get along. But that also changes throughout the book series, which is really nice. Andrea is also married. And so we also get her husband as a main character. And I actually really like her husband initially in the series. So let's get into her husband. Her husband's name is Bill. He works in the police department, and he is just nice guy. Like, that's it. Like, nice rule follower. That's really his only character trait at the very beginning of the series. And I have to keep all the rest in. He just like wants to provide for his family and is nice to his wife, who is nice to him too. Like, they have a great relationship, especially at the beginning of the series. They're very cute. Like, I don't have any complaints about the character relationship there. But those are Bill and Andrea, who they are often paired together in the storylines. The next is Michelle. This is the other sister of Hannah Svensson. I don't love Michelle either. The sisters are kind of rough. I don't know why the sisters are written that way. As a person who has sisters, I'm like, oh, do we not like our sisters, Joanne Fluke? Michelle is like a college student and is wild like a college student. She does not appear until I think the 4th or 5th book. She's like right at the end of this tail end. All you need to know is she's like a theater major, and she gives big theater kid energy. Big theater kid. Kind of in the most annoying way possible, but it does lead to one very, very funny shenanigan that does occur later in the series. So I do love Michelle for that. Thank you, Michelle. Now we gotta get to the love interest, because there is romance in this series. And I don't like romances. I love the romance in this series, sometimes. And we'll get to it. So one of the love interests is named Mike. What we know about Mike is he's from the big city. So he's from Minneapolis, I guess. Like, he's from the big city of Minnesota. And his wife was murdered in a shootout. We get no more details about that. I thought that was eventually going to come up, and like we were going to figure out who murdered Mike's wife. That's never mentioned again. It's like a throwaway, like, oh, by the way, his wife murdered. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. So yeah, his wife murdered, and so he wanted to go and like live the slow, quiet life and like move to the tiny town. So Mike is in this small town, and he is hot. His character traits are hot, dead wife, kind of stupid. Like, I can't describe him as anything else, because he doesn't get fleshed out a ton in the series, which is kind of shocking, because that Hallmark show that I mentioned, they only have him as a love interest. He's the only love interest. I have to imagine he's more interesting in the television version, but he's like incredibly boring in the book series, because like you can tell from the way that Joanne Fluke's writing him that like Hannah's only interested in him because he's hot. Oh, and he's a player. We'll get into it. Okay, the next love interest, Norman. Norman is the other love interest, and he's a dentist. He is like a nerdy, balding dentist, which is like not what a love interest typically is. Love him. He is like one of the funniest characters in the entire series. He's super smart. He's helpful. He does photography on the side. We get a ton of Norman, which is actually why it's so shocking that there's like a love triangle in the series, because like one of them gets fleshed out and the other doesn't. Like, Norman only gets fleshed out and Mike does not. It's kind of crazy. But Norman is just like very sweet and nice. His mom is kind of like Dolores. She's a little crazy and like really wants her son to get married. And Norman at one point was engaged, but they broke off their engagement. His like girlfriend left him. And we actually get to meet the girlfriend later in the series. More on that later. Not in this video though, in a later video. I think like part 5. Like that's way later in the series, but Norman's like a super enjoyable kind of main character as well. The other characters I need to introduce you to at the very beginning, trying to make sure I don't like forget anyone that's really important. Oh, I'll mention like a minor character. She's in the background a lot. She's like a secondary character, but I really enjoy her. Her name is Claire. She runs the boutique next door to Hannah's business. And her whole thing is that she is like cute and she runs like a kind of like high-end boutique in this like tiny town. And she always knows like the right outfit for you and like the most flattering outfit. She's like a fashionista in Minnesota. Love her. She's again a very funny character and so much drama around her. Kind of love it. And it's so funny when you get later in the series and you're like, wait, Claire? Claire did what? Love it. So I think I've gotten through all of the characters that need to be mentioned for me to start talking about the series. Okay, we're going to get into the first book, which is called The Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder. So basically, what happens in the book is we meet Hannah and she goes to work and she sees Ron DeSalman. Ron DeSalman is the milk driver for the Cozy Cow. He's the one who delivers like all the dairy products in the morning. And so she like sees him on the way and she like waves and he's like cupping his face. And she is like, well, that's weird. Whatever. And she is just drives into work. It's snowy. She has to plug her car in to make sure it doesn't freeze, which is like shocking to me that that's like a thing. I've lived in really cold towns and I have never plugged my car in to a wall. I've had to like have someone like cover my shift while I went and like turned on my car every 20 minutes to make sure it didn't freeze in cold weather, but I've never had to like plug it into a wall to keep it like the engine heated. Crazy Minnesota behavior. But she goes out because she's like, this is the time when Ron would normally be here and I saw him this morning, so like he's not running late. She goes outside into like the back alley and the Cozy Cow truck is there. She's like, well, where's my milk? You know, like and she opens his truck door. He falls out dead. He's been shot. And worse than him being murdered in her back alley, he has her cookies. This is like a weird thing that happens at the beginning of the series. They eventually do away with this, thank God. Which is that Hannah's worried that someone being murdered in the vicinity of her cookies is bad for business. I'm like, girl, get real. Someone died. Like, Ron died. It turns out that Ron, we get like a little bit more details on Ron. He was basically like a town local legend. He was really good at football when he was in high school and like got like a really bad injury and ended up staying in the town. He was like really nice and a lot of people just like really enjoyed him. So he's kind of a good first murder suspect because he's the most liked person in town. He was just like good person. And so Hannah is like trying to figure out what the deal is because she also doesn't want her bakery closed because of the crime scene and to have people not want to come in. She quickly learns that like the people in her town are crazy evil people and they want to hear the drama and the gossip about the murder, so they like, keep coming to her business to be like, so like that guy got murdered in your back alley, which she's like kind of appalled by, but then she's like, this is good for my business. So she ends up partnering with Bill, her sister's husband, to try and solve the case. So she's going to kind of just like use her interpersonal skills to get him information because he is looking for a promotion because Andrea is about to have to go back to work to afford their lives. And so Andrea's like talking about like showing some houses again, and Bill just really wants Andrea to be able to like enjoy herself. Andrea wants like new floors in their house, so she's like, no, I'm gonna go back to work so we can afford it. She seems fine with it. Bill just like doesn't want her to have to do something she doesn't want to do, which is very cute husband behavior. And so he's like, please help me, Hannah. And so Hannah's like, mm-hmm. So she ends up going to drop off cookies for the Boy Scouts at the local school, and she talks to the lady because they also get a delivery from the Cozy Cow. And it turns out that Ron was there and he had an assistant with him. And Hannah's like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have an assistant. I didn't see an assistant with him this morning. Like, who's the assistant? We live in a small town. And the lunch lady's like, oh, I didn't see him. I leave out coffee for him. And 2 coffee cups were used, and the other person left lipstick on the cup. So that's how I know. And Hannah's like, a woman was with him? So she dumpster dives, gets the cup, and it's this like garish color. Like, it's like a ugly pink. That's how they keep describing it. They're like, it's ugly. No one would look good with it. It's like the most unflattering color ever. So she goes to a beauty counter. She sweet talks the beauty counter lady. And she finds out that basically the lipstick color is like only sold from like an MLM. They don't describe it as such because I don't think these books were written in the early 2000s. They weren't talking about MLMs like that. They were like Mary Kay. But basically she ends up going to this poor lady's house who sells the beauty products. And she like donates some toys and stuff to her family, even though that girl does not like charity. But she's like, no, I was getting rid of this stuff anyway. So Hannah goes and talks to her and figures out who bought the lipstick. And the owner of the lipstick is this lady named Daniela in town. And Hannah's like, oh my God, Daniela is married to Coach Watson. And you're like, oh, drama, like an affair is occurring. Ron is sleeping with Daniela. That's the immediate jump. So she like tells Bill all this information, and Bill's like, good work, like, cool. I'm gonna go do my job. He does not. He never does his job. So then Hannah goes to talk to Daniela. And this is where the tone shifts pretty dramatically. I think this is why I like this cozy murder mystery series, is that it gets dark. A lot of cozy murder mysteries tend to stray away from like tough topics, is kind of like the way to describe it. This series loves tough topics. Hannah gets the door opened by Daniela. Daniela has a bruise on her eye. Her husband hits her. Yep, like there's no nice way to say it. Like, her husband's a domestic abuser. And there's a really, really nuanced depiction of like victims, which I was shocked to read in the early 2000s and in like a cozy murder mystery book, because Hannah's like goes to Bill and she's like, I know someone is being harmed by their husband, but they don't want to report. And Bill's like, you need to give me the name of the man. And she's like, I promised this person that I wasn't going to go tell the police because she doesn't want to come to the police yet. And they have a very nuanced, and like Mike gets in the conversation too, which is like points for Mike. They end up having this conversation about how like it's really hard for victims to leave because of like abusive practices and abusive cycles. And it's very good. I was like, yay! Interesting. I was so shocked by it being like included in this book. And like Daniela is pretty sure that her husband, Coach Watson, I'm just gonna call him Coach Watson, is like getting better because he's going to therapy to try and deal with it. And Daniela was meeting with Ron because she has a gambling addiction. Who would have thought? And she doesn't want to make her husband more mad at her by having him think that she was sleeping with someone else, but also with financial problems. So she was talking with Ron. He's kind of like her sponsor, which is really great that she has a support system in Ron. Well, now he's dead. So basically we have this going on. It's a ton of crazy stuff. So we're now knowing that Ron, good guy of the millennium, trying to help Daniela out of a bad situation with her addiction, as well as he was trying to get her out of the situation with Coach Watson, which does make him Hannah's top suspect. But I know what you're thinking. What about Hannah's dating life? What's going on there? Okay. Mike moves into town. And her mom sets her up on a date with a dorky dentist named Norman. My king. Hannah starts to suspect that Norman is the murderer. Norman has recently moved into town. He's taking over his dad's practice. He didn't grow up in Lake Eden. His mom and his dad moved to the town while Hannah was in college. And then his dad recently passed away. And so Norman is taking over the practice of dentistry in the town. And the reason why she starts to suspect that Norman might be involved is, one, she doesn't know him, stranger. And the other one is that she saw Ron cupping his face. And so she thinks he had a dental injury. And she goes and asks Norman. And Norman confirms to her that, yes, he came to Norman's office that morning on his delivery truck, and he gave him like a thing. Because basically, Ron got punched in the face in the middle of the morning. And Hannah's immediately like, oh, Coach Watson found out about Danielle meeting with him, and he punched Ron in the face thinking that Ron was having an affair. And so she's like, I've got to break into Norman's medical records and like double check, because I also think Norman may have murdered him. She's kind of spinning out and just accusing everyone, which I love. Love that for her. She is just accusing Norman. So her and her sister decide to team up to break into Norman's office and look through confidential medical records. When she's doing that, another drastic tonal shift in the series happens. She is looking through all these files and she finds one that's like hidden. And she's like, oh, this must be Ron's. She pulls it out and it's pictures of women's chestal regions. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, what is this? What is this? And she realizes she can see like the thing that they put in your nose when they put like laughing gas in you for like dental procedures. And she's like, oh my God. Norman is taking pictures of people when they are unconscious with the laughing gas. Another very serious tone. All of a sudden, I was like, oh my goodness. Because I was like, he's one of the love interests, obviously. And I was like, oh, okay, we're accusing him of a very serious crime now. And she shows it to Andrea. She's like, oh God, what a creep. He's been in practice for like, I swear, 3 months. And she is immediately accusing him of this. And Andrea's like, I recognize that necklace. Because like, she's like a fashion fiend. Like, show Andrea a picture of something that's like a fashion. And she's like, I know exactly the designer and the year. Like, she's so funny about that. And she's like, I recognize that necklace. That's that old lady's necklace. But they're looking at the picture and it's young. And then they piece together, this is Norman's dad's doing. Norman's dad was a sex criminal for years, apparently, and then died. We never know what happened to Norman's dad. I'm assuming just died of old age. But yes, Norman's dad was doing that. And Hannah and Andrea make the choice to go, you know what? Norman doesn't need to know. And neither do any of these victims. That part is always the craziest to me, that they just decide, like, you know what? They don't need to know. This, again, never brought up after the first book. It is literally like a just drop and let it go. It is crazy business. Like, I can't explain how, like, it's just in one scene they're like, okay, well, I guess it's not Norman. And basically Hannah's rationale for not telling Norman about this, or the victims, is that she doesn't want to like ruin their lives, because she's like, they don't remember it, so like, why tell them? And I'm like, I think people should know that they were victimized, but whatever. So back to the murder plot. Her love interests are set. Norman's dad is evil. Mike is refusing to help in the murder investigation, but does have really good awareness about DV. We start good. And Norman and her, like, they're friends. They're like kind of friendly at the very beginning of the series too, which is cute. So, you know, who is the murderer? So basically, another person gets murdered. She decides to go to the Cozy Cow to talk to like Ron's like employers and stuff. And Max is dead. Murdered. She finds him dead on the property, and they're like, oh my God. Now, Max is the total opposite of Ron. He was the evilest man in the world. Like, he sucked and everyone hated him. He was like an evil loan guy who like would purposely write these like evil clauses into his things and like sign. He's like a predatory lender basically. And so he was evil and everyone in the town hated him. So like lots of suspects for that. And Hannah pieces together that it's probably the murder is probably actually related to Max and that Ron is collateral damage, because we know she finds out that Ron and Max like Ron went to go see Max that day that he died. So Hannah's working theory is that Ron was killed because he saw who killed Max, which is a really good working theory. And you're like, okay, she's smart. She's putting pieces together. And so she is trying to figure out who would have it out for Max. And the problem is that everyone has it out for Max because everyone hates him because he sucks. Mm-hmm. And she continues to try and research. She like goes to the mall and stuff and like hangs out with her sister. There's like a lot of like extra things happening during the storyline. She gets a cute dress from Claire. I almost called her Carrie. That's a different character. And Dolores is hassling her to get a boyfriend this entire time. She's actively trying to solve a murder for Bill. And Bill and Hannah have great banter at the beginning of the series. I actually, at one point, like on my first read through the book series, didn't remember that Bill was married to Andrea. And I was like, oh, this is the cop love interest, because I knew there was a cop love interest and a dentist love interest. No. It's Mike. Mike's the love interest, not Bill. But Bill and her have phenomenal banter. And actually, I really wish we got to see more of their friendship. We never get to see their friendship really again after the first book. Mm-hmm. That's like honestly like the biggest shame of the series, is that like that never gets explored again. It like genuinely hurts my heart. So they end up going to like, basically, I have left this part out because it's confusing and boring. Andrea dated this like guy who was super rich in the town when she was in high school, and he's visiting back in town, and his parents are like throwing like a party to like celebrate their like super uber successful son being hot. And immediately when they introduced him, I was like, murderer. They go to this party and Hannah is like scoping stuff out, and she notices that some of their antiques are fakes. It's almost like the money they say they have, they don't seem to actually have. They have fake ones. Dolores points them out too. And Dolores is an antique freak, as we know. And so Hannah's like, that's interesting. So she breaks back into Max's house to like that where the dead guy was, who was like the predatory lender. And she finds out that yes, there's nothing on file for these people. She thought that she was going to find like a predatory loan to the really rich family. But there's nothing. She's like, oh, I guess it's not them. She ends up going to the house to talk to them anyway, because she's like, you know what, I'm going to investigate, because if I was being harassed by a predatory lender, I would steal the document. Like, she like thinks it together. She like puts it together. So she goes and she's talking to Judith. That's the wife. And she's like, what's going on here? Turns out Judith is the murderer, not the husband. She thinks it's the husband initially, I think because like it's a man. But Judith quickly reveals that she is incredibly evil. She murdered Max because her husband was stupid and couldn't read a loan document, even though she begged him to read a loan document. She talks about it like he's so stupid for it. Like Judith, when she's like doing her like evil murderer monologue, she's like, he's so stupid. But it's like established that Max is pretty conniving in his methods. So I actually don't think Max was stupid. I think she was just mad at the situation. Max basically was going to like take away their property and home, and they were struggling with money, and they were trying to put up like false pretenses. So she murdered Max to get the loan document back. And Ron had walked or like had seen her there, so she had to kill Ron, and so he was just collateral damage. And She nearly kills Hannah. Hannah distracts her by talking to her about false antiques and being like, that antique's fake, girl, which is so funny. And then Hannah subdues her by tying her up with silk scarves and lets Bill do the big arrest. And she's like, I'm so good at my job. Bill thanks her profusely, and again, it's a really cute moment of these like siblings in law. I really love the dynamic. I can't say that enough because we never see it again. And there's actually like a really bad moment in their relationship that will come up in a later book in the series. And so basically, she ends the book where she's like at dinner with her mom, having a good time, and her mom's like, Hannah, if only you dressed better, you would have a boyfriend. And Hannah's like, I'm wearing my old Nikes. And she ends the book on 2 dates because Mike and Norman decide to co-date Hannah. Mm-hmm. Polygamy. It's not really polygamy, but she does for the rest of the series like actively date both of them at the same time, which I think is so interesting and so unique, especially from the time period, to be like, oh yeah, like our main girl character is just dating like 2 men at the same time, like, and they are aware of it, and the guys are friends. That is book 1, and I just realized that I talked about that book way too long. And so I'm definitely gonna like make the books a little bit briefer in my recaps because I, quite frankly, cannot be making this video like 2 hours long by talking about 5 books. So we are gonna start speeding up. Okay. The next is the Strawberry Shortcake Murder. So I know what you're all thinking. Coach Watson got to live? Not for long. They kill him in this book. Mm-hmm. So basically, the way in this book, there is a like amateur like bakers kind of competition, and Hannah is one of the judges on the panel. It's her and like Coach Watson and some other characters. It doesn't really matter who the other people are. Coach Watson found dead. Mm-hmm. The prime suspect is Danielle because that is her husband who is physically attacking her. I love this turn. I love it so much. I was really scared they were going to give the Coach Watson character like a redemption arc in the series, and they said, absolutely not. We're killing him immediately. Loved it. Mm-hmm. He was killed by a ball peen hammer in his own garage. It's very interesting. I really like this murder. It's really good. This is not my favorite from the first 5. It's actually the next one that we're going to talk about, but this one, Coach Watson is dead. And Hannah now is doing the murder solving because she wants to clear her friend Danielle's name. And Dolores, her mom, is pissed that Hannah is involved in these murders because it is going to ruin her dating chances. Mm-hmm. That is Dolores' main problem, not the murders. There's now been 3 murders in their town in the winter months. So, like, in the span of 3 months, there's been 3 murders. And Dolores is like, I am pissed that Hannah cannot get a boyfriend. The priorities are correct. I love Dolores. And also during this time, Dolores becomes friends with Carrie, not Claire, Carrie, who is Norman's mom. They have a super cute friendship that I love and is just like in the background for the rest of the series. Love it. Yay, Carrie and Dolores. Okay, so Coach Watson murdered. There's also this like reporter running around. Her name is Lucy Richard, and she like sucks. She is kind of like an exploitative journalist, and she is really feeding the narrative that Danielle murdered her husband. And so basically, Hannah is running around while also trying to do the judging for this bake show, while also trying to clear Daniela's name. She's also trying to date Norman and Mike at the same time. Busy girl. Eventually, Lucy is murdered too, the reporter. Mm-hmm. She gets introduced and gets murdered. And Hannah thinks they're connected because she is like, that is weird. We should not have 4 murders in like 3 months. So she is trying to figure out what is going on. So first thing she kind of does is she goes to Coach Watson's job, which he is the coach of the football team and basketball team. And I think he's the coach of both. he's specifically, I know for sure, the basketball team coach, but I think he's also the football coach. And she's like talking to the principal, and a couple of his players have been going to the guidance counselor recently. That's what the principal tells Hannah. Hannah's like, interesting. And she talks to the guidance counselor, and he's like, girl, HIPAA. Like, or I guess technically because he's at a school, FERPA? Like, girl, no. You can't release information about a student, especially like the counselor cannot be releasing public information. He says that one of the kids was having trouble. That's like true. And that there was kind of a little bit of an investigation going on because steroids were found in the school. Interesting. Immediately, Hannah is like, Coach Watson is giving steroids to children, which I was like, yes, let's keep making him eviler. Like, I loved it. It turns out that's not the case. Coach Watson was not giving the kids steroids. He actually was trying to figure out who was supplying steroids to the students. And there was specifically one student that was doing them, but the guidance counselor cannot tell Hannah who it is. So Hannah now knows that there are steroids happening at the school and that Coach Watson was trying to figure out who was doing it. And Hannah correctly deduces, she puts two and two together. She goes, well, obviously, Coach Watson was killed because he figured out who was supplying steroids to children. No duh. Like, obviously, that's what is the reason why he's dead. So then she breaks into Lucy Richards' house. And she finds out that Lucy took a picture of the murder. Now, you might be like, why did Lucy not go to the police? She didn't know that she had a picture of the murder. She was scoping out Coach Watson's house, I believe also for the steroid reporting. Lucy's just doing crazy stuff the entire book, so it's kind of sometimes hard to track what Lucy was doing because also she dies pretty early on. But Lucy has now took a picture like at night of Coach Watson's house, and she like caught part of the image and like her flash went off. So the murderer saw the flash from Lucy's camera and then went and killed her. Love it. So basically Hannah's like, well, I don't know who it is. And their like local town is like broadcasting the bakery, the bake contest. And so like Hannah is like, they probably broke in to the bakery contest because I think Lucy is found on the set. So she's like, let's review the security footage. So she meets up with Mason, who lives in the town, and she's like, can we watch the security footage from the event so I can see who got onto the set? And she's watching the security footage and she's drinking her coffee, which she calls Swedish plasma. Important note. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. She calls coffee Swedish plasma. And she like deduces, she's like sitting there and she's like, Mason has a son on the basketball team. And he has access to the set. It's Mason. And then Mason does try to kill her. Mike comes to the rescue. Thank God he's here. And there's also more drama introduced in this book as well. We get to the introduction of a character named Shauna Lee. She is a lady who used to work with Mike when he was in the big city. And she has now come down to also work at the police station down here by Mike's recommendation. And she's hot. And even though Hannah is dating two men at once, she is actively jealous of this information. Keep an eye out for Shauna Lee, okay? Okay, that is the strawberry shortcake murder. Now we're going to get into one of my favorite books from the series, which is the blueberry muffin murder. This one is, let me switch my notes. This one is honestly really great. Okay. Big stretch. Okay, so they are now doing the winter carnival. And it is so cool. So now it's still winter. And there's about to be a fifth murder in this town. And this is the first non-double murder in the series. I actually thought for a hot minute that the series was going to have a double murder like every single book. That is not the case. They stopped doing double murders here. There will be occasionally a double murder, but it's not going to be a regular occurrence. They have a celebrity chef coming in to town to be a part of the winter carnival. Now, she wouldn't normally be coming, like they kind of are all shocked that she's coming to a little town like this, but she is having a new chain of like her storefront that like sells like her pots and pans and stuff that's going into their local mall. So she's coming to promote that. And her name is Connie Mack. She is basically like evil Rachel Ray. I have never heard anything mean about Rachel Ray, so I have to assume this is evil Rachel Ray. And she is like diabolical. She treats everyone like garbage. Mm-hmm. And so she gets murdered. And everyone thinks that it is her assistant, Janie. And Janie is kind of like from the town or like adjacent to the town. And so Hannah starts investigating to try and clear Janie's name because Janie is being wrecked by these allegations. At the same time, Norman and Hannah enter a contest together, which I think is really funny. They do a like build your own like dream home contest where they design one on like CAD basically, and they are like designing what a dream home would look like for them, and it's kind of like a joint house. He originally like asks her for the help with it because he wants her advice on like the kitchen, and they end up just having a really good time with it and doing the whole house together. It's a really cute moment, and literally from this book on you're like, so like she's gonna end up with Norman, right? Because it's very quickly established that Norman and her seem to have this like genuine friendship and like kinship while also being romantic, where like she's like, oh, I love kissing him. Where Mike and her, it is just like Mike's hot. And like she's actively frustrated with Mike in this book and the previous book because Mike is trying to stop her from investigating. He's like, you're not a cop, you cannot be investigating. And Mike also brought Shauna Lee in from out of town. So there's a lot of issues going on with Mike that is making Hannah not as interested in him. And so you can kind of start seeing the Norman favoritism. And I am for it. Like I said, the Hallmark show eliminates Norman, the main love interest, by book 3, which is shocking to me. I like cannot get over it. It turns out this is my favorite book, one of my favorite books in the series. My favorite book in the series is the Cream Puff Murders, but this one is really high up there because it's so good. There's just like a lot of fun family dynamic stuff. Dolores is like wild and out the entire book, because people have started saying that Hannah has like a murder radar, because she keeps finding all the dead bodies, and Dolores is like so like beside herself about this because it's going to make Hannah unavailable to date, and it's also going to make their family look embarrassing. Another thing about Dolores is she runs a Regency romance book club in the town, very cute, and her and Carrie are thinking about starting a business together, of like an antique dealership. They're kind of talking about it in the background of the series, which is very cute. I love that friendship. We also find out that Claire, the lady who owns the like cute like boutique store that lives next, or doesn't live next door, but is the building next door to Hannah's cookie shop, we find out that she is having an affair with the mayor. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lisa is also like harboring a crush on Herb Beesman. You might be like, who's that? He is one of the funniest characters in the series. He is the traffic control cop in the town, and he tickets people like crazy. He is so silly. He's so goofy. He's so in the background of the series that he's not even like important to mention, really. All you need to know is he one time gave Dolores a ticket and she's never forgiven him. Excellence. Okay. Basically, Andrea and Hannah go to investigate, and they see that Connie Mack's business going into the mall is putting out this like small town business owned by Greg. And Greg is like really cute and kind of like flirty. In the book, you're like, oh, I think he likes Hannah. Like he's like flirting with Hannah. And he runs kind of like a shop that would be a direct competitor to Connie Mack. And they find out that in Connie Mack's contract with the mall, that any business that competes with Connie Mack's general audience, if the mall wants them, they have to shut down. So basically, the mall like rescinded its like spot for Greg's business for Connie Mack's one because they thought it would bring in more money. Greg is out of a job. His like business has fallen apart because of Connie Mack. So that immediately is like Hannah's like, well, that seems bad. She goes to the mall at night with Andrea to try and find evidence to prove that it's probably Greg. And it is Greg. It is Greg. Greg is the murderer. He killed Connie Mack because she put him out of business. Honestly, at the beginning of the series, it kind of seems like the murderer is killing the right people. You know, predatory lender, abuser, lady who's putting out small businesses. Like, I can't blame those first couple murders. So he starts like chasing them down, and it's like kind of scary. Like, I was like, oh my god. I knew Andrea and Hannah were going to be safe, but it was honestly like a really creepy scene because they're like crawling around in his business as he's like sing-songy, like, Hannah, where are you? Like, he's doing that stuff, and it was so like kind of creepy. And it was again like a tonal shift where you're like, oh, the book got creepy. And you're honestly kind of worried that they're going to get murdered. Andrea is like in the office in the back, and Hannah's in the storefront, and Greg is like in there. And so Hannah's trying to keep him from getting to the back where Andrea is phoning the police while also trying to not get murdered. And there's a bunch of murder weapons in the building because it is like a pots and pans knives store. They end up apprehending Greg. It's right. It's what's right. Talk about the lemon meringue pie murder. This is the book that's like the most problematic in the series. It has 3 things in it that I don't particularly like, which does end up making it the most problematic. But honestly, like, if this is the most problematic book in a series, like, you're really doing fine. I still thought this book was really good, and it actually had some interesting things to say. I'm gonna get the problematic things out of the way really quick, and then I'm gonna get into the actual like plot of the book. The 3 problematic things that occur in the book is Lisa's discussion of patriotism. This book is set in 4th of July, and Lisa, a character I deeply love, kind of goes on like a political tyrant. A tirade, not tyrant, tirade about people disagreeing with political leaders and how that's bad and that you should follow the person in charge because they're the person in charge, and like you have to respect them even if you don't like them or don't agree with their policies. And I just don't love that sentiment. And I think that's really just like a case of this book series was born post 9/11. And if you don't know, 9/11 had like a really profound impact on patriotism and nationalism in the United States, as well as had a really big impact on like all media. So I'm not surprised that that sentiment was mentioned. I just really don't love it being in the book. And especially from a character I really like, I didn't love hearing her basically say that like dissenting views should not be shared. And so that was just something that I didn't love in the book. I think it's really important that you share disagreements and that political figures are people to help the people, not harm the people. And so I kind of just disagreed fundamentally with that being included in the book. Another is this is a book that's really centric on Hannah's weight, which I have mentioned I don't particularly like in a book. And I just don't particularly find that fun in a cozy murder mystery book to hear the main character constantly lamenting about their weight and being on like a diet. A lot of other reviewers of this book series have been like, it's another wacky adventure in her dieting. And I just don't love its depiction, which is actually very interesting because my favorite book in the entire series, The Cream Puff Murders, heavily deals with Hannah dieting. And there's something a lot more palatable about the way it's talked about in that book. And I think the fundamental issue is that Hannah seems like not happy about doing it here in this book, where in the Cream Puff Murders, she's like kind of taking it as like a resolution to like get stronger. And so it feels more empowered of a choice, where in this one, if I remember correctly, the catalyst is that she bought a pair of jeans and she tries them on and they don't fit her. And she kind of like crashes out over it and is like, I have to diet immediately, and like is kind of almost doing like a crash diet, which I don't love. And the resolution is that it turns out that her and Andrea accidentally like swapped jeans when they went shopping together, and she was actually trying to put on Andrea's jeans, and Andrea's like a size 2 in the book series, so they obviously weren't going to fit Hannah anyway. um I just didn't love the dieting in this, especially like there's so many descriptive scenes of her like ordering a salad and being like so sad that she's not eating the food she wants to eat. And also her being like really adverse to like exercise, and like viewing the fact that like exercise and nutrition play a part in your weight. She's basically just like, I just have to stop eating cookies. It's like, no girl, you can eat cookies and still be like thin. Like your sister does it all the time. So I didn't love like that element. The dieting was really just like, which also again I think is a symptom of like early 2000s like dieting culture is gross. The third is the most problematic. Like I saved the best for last, or I guess worst for last. There is a character who's disabled in this book, um, who there's actually like a very interesting and nuanced discussion about disability and like how families care for them, which I did actually really like. And I talked to my friend about it because I was like, it was really interesting to see this in a book. And I'll get to that discussion when I'm in the plot. But they do use some like outdated terms to describe them, and at times it breeds a little offensive to disabled people. And that again, I think it's just all products of its time of just like not knowledge, because Joanne Fluke, I like read some stuff into her, and she genuinely seems like someone who like wants to do good in the world. So I am going to kind of take all these like problematic elements that are in this specific book and kind of chalk it up to, it's the 2000s. We're having a rough time in the 2000s. um and I still like I said, I didn't think this book was bad, and I also don't think it's like so problematic that people shouldn't read it. If you are reading the series, my friend read this entire series out of order, which I think is crazy business, but that was so funny when she told me that. I think honestly you could skip this book and like be fine. um if you were like offended by any of the content that's I mentioned in this book, you can honestly skip this book and be completely fine. I'm now going to get into the plot of this book. So the contest that Norman and Hannah entered over the dream house, Norman ended up winning. And so he splits the prize money with Hannah and himself. And he actually decides to use that as a down payment to buy a property in town. He's been wanting to buy a house, and he buys this kind of like shabby old home that's like really crusty. And his plan is to demolish it and actually build the dream house. And Hannah's like, okay, but like we're not married, and it's my dream house. And he's like, yeah, but it's my dream house, girl. You can like move in if you want, I guess, but like I'm building it for me, which I actually kind of love that Norman's like, girl, I like the house. And he bought it from a woman named Rhonda who had recently come into money, and so she was gonna like move and like retire. She was like living her best life. And before Norman, and she like left town early after he bought the house. And Norman lets Dolores go into the house to go and look for any antiques because Rhonda left a lot of items in the home. And since Norman's tearing it down, he doesn't really care about those items. And so Dolores goes in to look for antiques and finds Rhonda's dead body. Mm-hmm. Rhonda has been murdered. And great news for Hannah that she did not find the dead body this time. She kind of wishes she did because it like really traumatizes her mom in this book, but like, oh well. So we also get the introduction of Michelle. This is the first time that Hannah's youngest sister comes home, and she is giving theater kid in kind of the worst way possible. She like comes into town like dressed crazy, with like dyed hair and like tattoos and stuff, like kind of like way too over the top and too much. And it turns out that she had like an audition and she just wanted to like terrorize her family, I guess, for fun. I didn't love that choice for Michelle. That's kind of the start of Michelle being annoying. Um, and it does not cease. Michelle eventually at one point goes and gets some money from the bank, and the money is kind of weird and kind of old. And they find out when Hannah goes and is talking to the bank manager that this money, it's like the code, like on money, is on the list of money that was stolen from a bank like a while back. And so this money was used in a bank robbery. So someone is circulating robbery money in the town. And she finds out that that money that the bank teller got was actually from the deli, and they can't trace it back any farther because lots of people paying cash in the town. And so they're kind of at like a dead end, and they're like, okay, so like someone is circulating robbery money. And Rhonda had two glasses out, like two glasses of wine out. So she was clearly had someone over that murdered her. So it must have been someone she trusted. And Hannah kind of puts together that Rhonda came into money recently. So maybe Rhonda was a part of this robbery. We also have these two characters that get introduced. It's Jed and his brother. Jed has been gone from the town for a while, and he's kind of like a bad boy. And his brother is the disabled character that I mentioned earlier. And they kind of like repair stuff. So they're going to repair the freezer in the cookie shop that Hannah owns. And they were also helping Rhonda with some windows. And Jed is like definitely a really bad influence on his brother. And this is where the interesting conversation happens about disability. Hannah talks about how um, the disabled brother is kind of how he was like infantilized by the mother and never like let to be like wasn't allowed to be independent, and so he struggles with independency as an adult, and how clearly that he can do a lot of stuff and be really independent, but because he was so infantilized, as a lot of people who are disabled are, that he wasn't able to show his independence. And so it's a really interesting conversation of like infantilization of disabled people. I was really shocked that that happened in the book, and I thought that was actually a really progressive comment to make, because I think that's still a discussion we're having of like disabled people can do things, and you need to stop pretending that they're like babies and like talking down to them, because that's like stupid. You need to stop talking down to them. And basically Jed is still being like a horrible influence on his brother and is leading him to like drink and everything. This book has a really interesting tonal shift for the series where it becomes really apparent who the killer is. You can tell from the very beginning of the book that it's Jed. Like, it's obvious that it's Jed. And I think that was an interesting choice. And I think the reason why that choice was made was I think Joanne wanted to like kind of experiment with the killers. You can kind of tell there's experimentation going on with the blueberry muffin, with like that kind of like scary scene, and then this book right after with Jed. Jed is like incredibly charming in the book, and so it's kind of like this like turn of him like suddenly becoming evil, which I thought was really interesting. He ends up locking Hannah into her freezer inside like her that he was repairing, and the brother ends up helping her get out, which is really great that they have that moment for the brother, and the brother gets to be a little bit more independent as the future goes on. And Jed did kill Rhonda to cover up for his robbery that he had done. He had hidden the money inside Rhonda's house, and so he was trying to get it back when he killed Rhonda. So that is kind of the motivation for this book. And now we're going to get into the final book that I'm going to be talking about today, which is the Fudge Cupcake Murder. Now, this book has the special honor of being one of my least favorite books in the entire series. The first 5 is really chaotic. The Fudge Cupcake, my first note is this is the bad one. This book struggles from a problem that appeared in the lemon meringue, which is that you know who the killer is immediately. it's in the first 5 pages that you can tell who the killer is going to be, and it's not similar to Lemon Meringue where it's the guy's really charismatic, so it's like a shocking turn. um it is just like genuinely the character it seems like it's going to be the reveal of the killer, and I just really disliked this book. And there's some really dumb decisions, and one thing I would say about the book series is that Hannah is not dumb. She is like smart and makes like good attempts to do things in the series. One thing that's very annoying about Hannah is she's anti-technology. I haven't mentioned that yet because it hasn't really come up yet until this book. It becomes a serious fundamental problem of she has a cell phone, she refuses to charge it, and she also doesn't bring it with her anywhere. So when she is in danger, she has literally no way of contacting people. That is like the most annoying character trait ever put to paper. I understand why it's being done. I do not like it. And in this book, the sheriff gets murdered. I have not mentioned the sheriff once. He is annoying. His name is Sheriff Grant. He was up for re-election this year, and his only person that was running against him was Bill, Andrea's husband. So he is the prime suspect. And typically when it was re-election years for Sheriff Grant, he would do like undercover secret research, not tell anyone else about it, to like do a big bust, so then he would get reelected. And so he was obviously investigating something right before he died, but no one knows what it was because he keeps it super on the DL. Some background lore about Sheriff Grant that you learn in this book, which is important, is that Sheriff Grant had a son with his wife, and that son died. The son died in a driving accident, and it was due to, well, they actually don't really understand what it was due to. They think it might have been drunk driving, but they're unsure. It's kind of like inconclusive at the beginning of the book. Now, we get into this. The killer is the so in this book, there's not a lot happening with a lot of the other characters, which I think really is why this book gets so low on my ranking of this book series. But it turns out that the mechanic in town is running a chop shop and selling like faulty parts and stuff, and that's actually what caused Sheriff Grant's son to die, which like does give good motivation for Sheriff Grant to be investigating, but it's just kind of an uninteresting plot line. And basically, like, Hannah finds out that Sheriff Grant was investigating the chop shop thing because she is in Sheriff Grant's house. She's invited by the wife, and she finds a bunch of like car parts underneath one of the beds, and she like puts together that that's why. So she goes to the mechanics at night, phone dead, and she goes in like assuming that it's him. She's like, I should probably call Mike. No, I'm good. So then she goes in and she asks for a part from him, so then she can kind of like get information from him. She finds out his wife does not know that it's running a chop shop. She like she wants to go to like see like this like event that's happening in the town. It's like a dance recital. And she asks Hannah, hey, this guy's coming. Can you give him these pink papers? It's like my job normally, but I really want to go into the town and see this performance. And Hannah's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And that's when she pieces it together that it's a chop shop. She knows it. She also finds the murder weapon inside the mechanic shop. And she decides that she's going to steal it. This is where the stupidity really happens, and it's kind of really frustrating. Basically, instead of not stealing it, which like I cannot explain how like bad of an idea. She like goes to his car and she steals it. It's like a tire iron. She is like, I'm gonna lie to him when he shows up and say that I was trying to buy a tire iron. Why you would not? And like, this is my brain thinking, because she has time. She has time. She like goes, she steals it and then like goes to like sit back down with it. This is where the stupidity really happened, like where I was like losing my mind over how dumb she is. Her plan: steal the item from his car, wait with it in her lap, and then be like, okay, I'm purchasing it and then leave with it and turn it into the police. She knows that he knows that she's there. Like, the wife called and said, like, oh, like, by the way, Hannah's waiting for you to, like, check out. Why would you not steal the tire iron, put it in your car, hide it in your car, and then take another and, like, replace it with another tire iron in his car? And, like, just, like, buy something else? Like, I'm so confused by this thought process of, I'm gonna buy it in front of him and then leave with it. Because he immediately is like, that's my tire iron. And he also knows it's the murder weapon. So he's like, I'm going to kill you. It's, like, shockingly dumb of a choice. And, like, it's only so then the ending can happen, right? So then Hannah's like, oh no, he figured out my master plan. And she, like, runs away from him into his, like, chop shop, because he, like, lives outside of town. Like, that was fair, that was fine. And it's, like, a junkyard with, like, all the different cars everywhere. And so she, like, acknowledges that he has one of those things that can, like, magnetize the car and, like, put it in the crusher. And I was like, as soon as you mentioned the crusher, I know we're going to the crusher. And so she decides to hide in one of the cars. She doesn't run to her car. And she also acknowledges that he knows the junkyard better than she does, so, like, it's not good for her. She decides to hide in one of the cars. Like, this is really, like, ridiculous behavior. Like, I am, like, appalled by this choice. She goes in one of the cars. She also has a plate of fudge cupcakes, by the way, or, like, cupcakes with her. And she is, like, in the car, like, oh, I'm safe. He doesn't know where I am. And then all of a sudden, she feels the car get, like, vroom, like, by the magnet thing, like, lifting her up into the air. And she has a chance to jump out and doesn't. And so he just lifts her up into the air and obviously is going to put her in the crusher. And I'm like, well, yeah, fair enough. I would do it too. I'd crush you too, Hannah. You're being stupid. So then she's in the air because Mike showed up. So Mike is there. And so she's just in the air in the car dangling, and it's, like, windy or whatever. So, like, she's, like, trying to yell down and be like, Mike, I'm up here. Like, he's the murderer. He can't hear her, obviously, because she's so high up in the air. And she's like, I'm going to throw a shoe at him. I'm going to throw a shoe at Mike. What? Again, like, bad choice. Throw the shoe at the killer? Or throw the shoe to, like, the ground nearby them so then Mike isn't, like, hit in the head? No, she's aiming for Mike's head. So she's, like, whipping shoes down there. And she's missing because she's high up in the air and it's windy, and so, like, the shoe's being taken. And she's like, you know what? I'm gonna throw some cupcakes at him. She gets, like, 5 chances to, like, not throw an object at Mike, but yet continually does. She eventually does get a cupcake near him, and it startles him so much that he almost gets murdered by the mechanic because he was so startled by a cupcake raining down on him. This is ridiculous. Sorry, I just looked at my cat and he's doing, like, a little shrimpy. This is ridiculous behavior. And this is the most absurd, like, end scene in the book series. I really, really dislike this because it's Hannah making really bad choices in order to, like, get her to this part. There's two other elements in this book that make this one really bad. It is a Tracy-centric book. As you notice, I have not mentioned the child. She is in all the books. I have not mentioned her because, again, it's really precocious kid annoying. And this book has her having, like, a ballet pageant as, like, the prime storyline, which is so obnoxious. The last thing I care about is a child's concert recital. I'm not interested in it. Um, the one thing I am interested in the concert recital is that Danielle, mm-hmm, she opened a ballet studio. Yay, Danielle! Danielle's persevering. That's really annoying. That's like the thing that the wife goes to. And the other thing that's really annoying about this is the Hannah is jealous because Mike is seeing someone else, even though she is actively seeing two people at the same time, which is a very annoying Hannah behavior. So it's just kind of an annoying book, especially with the killer being so obvious, like right from the get go. I was able to guess the chop shop thing as soon as they introduced this mechanic character, because what crime would the mechanic be doing? A chop shop. And then they mention the car accident like right after that. Like Sheriff Grant lost his child in a car accident. And I was like, well, that's what it is. It would have been more interesting if they had mentioned maybe in book like 2 or 3 that Sheriff Grant had lost one of his kids in a car accident and then brought up this. I would have been like, oh, long con. But no, instead we have this. Ugh. Kind of a sour note to end on. But that is the first 5 books in the Hannah Svensson series. Like I said, I do really love this series. I only harp on things in the series because I do love it so much. I'm so excited for the next 5 books. Specifically, I'm so excited when we get to the Cream Puff Murders. That's, I think, would be in the 3rd installment of this series. I really hope you guys like this. It kind of just feels like I'm gossiping about a small town, which is kind of the funniest part about this series. Um, so I just had a really good time talking about this series that I love so much, and I hope you also enjoyed it. And I hope you have a great day. Bye.